I want to tell you a little secret. Come closer. No, closer. Yeah, closer. Right here. Yes. So, tell you a little secret that some studios probably might not want you to know. Instructors, I'm talking to you. Non competes are about to be obsolete. Yes. Nah. That's right. September 4th, 2024 is what I'm calling Instructor Independence Day. Now, don't go balls to the walls, as I've said in previous videos and talks. There's always mutual respect and integrity that needs to remain in any situation, any relationship. But I do want instructors to know, advocate for, and exercise your rights. So we are going to dive right in. So before I jump into the sauce, I do want to take a moment to point out the very obvious. I am not a legal professional. And I'm not giving legal advice. This material is just provided for informational purposes only. So also go out and do your own research. And it's not intended to constitute legal advice either. So again, go out, do your own research, but here's a good starting point, and some things to get you thinking, getting the conversation going. What I am, though, is a small business owner. I'm a creative business coach. I'm a business consultant. I'm a longtime pole aerial circus instructor. I'm an international judge, a professional beginner, as I dub myself, athlete advocate, all the things, with 13 plus years of experience in this industry. And over those 13 years, I have seen, experienced, and heard a lot. A lot of good things and a lot of just terrifying things. And successfully, I've been able to use what I've learned and heard to help me navigate and kind of create my own unique path in this industry to help avoid some of those same situations and unfortunately people, so that I can learn from the past. And so I've successfully, to this day, been able to do that. I've never been owned or controlled by any studio, despite being employed by them. And that's not as a student or an instructor. So the path that I was able to carve out for myself is a very doable path. You, as an individual instructor, just need to be clear on what it is you want to do, what you're bringing to the industry, and have an understanding of business and contracts. And for the things that you don't know, have mentors and resources where you can find out those things and get more information so that you don't get caught up in a situation that you either cannot get yourself out of or that's very painful to get yourself out of. So that being said, I also have a social disclaimer. I personally believe that we have a duty to leave this industry better than we found it. And so this discussion about the use and impacts of non-competes, for me, is just a part of that duty. Furthermore, just want to put it out there, this is not about any one specific studio, because non-competes have been widely practiced by many studios throughout the development and the advancement of our industry. So again, not an attack on any one or any many studios. It's just, again, an educational opportunity for those that need it, for those that can benefit from the information and be able to go on and make more informed decisions for themselves. This is, however, also holding up a mirror to studios who historically and repeatedly have displayed a harmful pattern of what I'm going to call problematic and questionable behavior around the use of non-competes, and in the process have hurt and held down real people. So that being said, if you read or you hear something within this that touches your heart or makes you feel some sort of way, it might be appropriate for some people to do a little bit of self-reflection and examination of your business practices. But it is your social and moral responsibility to those that you employ to look at how you handle and how you treat them, from a direct inner working relationship to your contractual relationships, what you put on paper. So a little background. If you guys have ever had to part ways from a studio, it is not always a good, I'll miss you, good luck kind of departure. A lot of times moving on from a studio for a lot of instructors, staffs, and even students feels like a nasty divorce at times. The departure is often followed by a little, let's kick you when you're down reminder that I still own that ass because you signed this non-compete contract, and now I am sentencing you to teacher purgatory simply because I can. Okay, might be a little creative in the head, might not be their attitude, but I just kind of see like Cruella de Vil with the evil laugh going on in the background. But the thing is, at the core, what the impacted individuals are facing is this: the very thing that the studios wanted you for, that they sought you out for, that maybe they helped train you to do, or they encouraged you to go out and train and learn to do. Maybe something that you did before you even became an instructor there, things that you did while you were an instructor there, are now the very things that they no longer want you to do after you leave them. Make it make sense. It doesn't, yeah? And I'm just like, to want to prevent someone from doing their profession and their passion is beyond me. To me, it says you and anyone else who signed this contract or that has been affiliated with me cannot go on to be as good as me or better than me. Not if I can help it. That's not okay. It's just not okay. All right, so before I dig in any further into the impacts of non-competes and why all this stuff matters and why it matters right now, I want to take a little step back. Let's start with a very simplified explanation of what a non-compete is for those who might not know what it is or might not understand the kind of the problems it can create, that aftermath. So a non-compete is a contract or a clause within a contract that has a lot of broad yet vague language. It's between a worker and an employer where basically the worker agrees not to work for competitors or start a competing business for a certain amount of time and a certain amount of miles from that place of employment after leaving the company. So the rightful idea behind it is to protect the employer's business interests, which is a very important thing. But by preventing the worker from sharing, sensitive information, skills, things that really truly are proprietary information and inner business workings with competitors that would give them a competitive or unfair advantage. However, these documents, they've been just so abused and bastardized over the years that they have completely warped into something that is no longer a protective mechanism, but rather a controlling mechanism. So I want to say that again. They are no longer a protective mechanism. They are being used as a controlling mechanism. I said all of that to say that non-competes at the end of your employment really are just an employment purgatory that unfairly holds instructors captive. And that's what I am excited to see ended, so that people can go on and do their work and do what they love and not be held back by someone who doesn't want them anymore anyways, yeah? So a little bit of history real quick. So I'm sure you're wondering, like, if non-competes are so bad and people want to get rid of them and people are trying to get out of them, then why do we even have them to begin with? Well, the idea and usefulness and purpose of a non-compete has been rooted in medieval apprenticeship systems. And so that was like back in the day when you had a master craftsman and they would find and train an apprentice. And so it was an agreement that meant that post-apprenticeship, the apprentice would not compete with their craftsman, with the person who taught them. This was meant to protect that master craftsman. In our case today, it would be the studios. But like so many things in life, it was mishandled. It was bastardized. It was turned into something that seems almost unrecognizable at this point. And it went from protecting that master craftsman and the investment that they truly made into bringing up this other person to a studio just being able to essentially control what an employee does when they leave their employment contract. And it made sense back in the day because often when you are an apprentice, the person, that master craftsman that you're learning from, that's your school, that's your internship, it's your on-the-job training, it's your mentorship, it's your coaching, it's your skip level, it's everything all wrapped into one. But today, in this industry, that's not always the case. More often than not, it's not the case. People can educate on their own. They can certify on their own. They can do their continuing education credits on their own. We pay to go train with other professionals. We learn from fellow instructors. There is just a wealth of information through organizations like ICO, ACE, IPIA, American Circus Alliance. So it's not all being taught to instructors from their studio. So they are learning and growing from a variety of places and a variety of resources. So with that in mind, why should any one studio be able to lay claim to you? So fast forward to today. Employers ideally should use non-competes to prevent skilled workers and senior workers from taking trade secrets, customer lists, proprietary information over to a competing firm. You want to reduce labor turnover, to gain leverage in future negotiations, to help keeping costs down. But these days, their purpose and application looks more like this. It's used by companies in low-wage industries, pole, circus, aerial, yeah, to block workers from accepting supplemental work and or changing jobs. What this means is that they are effectively limiting their economic opportunities and suppressing their income and earning potential while preventing them from moving on with their lives and work. Now, I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge that non-competes are disproportionately harmful to women and people of color. And also linked to racial injustice. Chew on that for a minute. Now, go look at the makeup of the pole aerial circus industry and just, you can imagine how harmful and predatory the practice and use of non-competes are to us today. So, let's talk about them being predatory. What do these things, these documents, these clauses say that's so predatory? Well, they say things like this. For 1 or 2 years after employment ends, employee will not directly or indirectly, on the employee's own behalf or on behalf of another person or in conjunction with another person, business firm, company, or other entity, become engaged in or employed by in the same or substantially similar capacity as the employee was engaged or employed by said company, or provide any service or advice that is the same or substantially similar or related to what the employee provided to the company while employed by that company to any enterprise, including without limitation any corporation, partnership, proprietorship, or other venture. Within a certain amount of radius, we already talked about the years. And then it goes on to talk about what specific activities you cannot do. And it might say something like circus, aerial fitness, aerial dance, aerial arts, pole fitness, pole dance, pole competition, cardio fitness, strength training, weightlifting, flexibility training, yoga, Pilates, etc. Literally naming every form of movement that you could do as an instructor or student at a studio. So you're basically banning all movement as a job. And I'm like, oh man, where have I heard this before? Ah, snap. The Lifetime channel. If I can't have you, nobody will. Come on, y'all. That's deadly behavior. That is so predatory, okay? Today, non-competes between employers and workers are generally subject to greater scrutiny under state common law than any other employment terms because they are often the product of unequal bargaining power and because the employee is likely to give scant attention to the hardship that they might suffer later through the loss of their livelihood. And I pulled that straight from the document. I'm going to link resources that all of this information is coming from so that you guys, again, can go and do your own research. But this is the problem. It is recognized that it is predatory behavior and that workers are being taken advantage of, okay? The evidence also indicates that employers frequently use non-competes even when they are unenforceable under state law. This suggests that employers may believe workers are unaware of their legal rights, that employers may be seeking to take advantage of workers' lack of knowledge of their legal rights, or that workers are just unable to enforce their rights through case-by-case litigation, which is a big deal. Like some of us, we can't afford to take these companies and studio owners to court, so they kind of just deal with it and fall off until they're able to do it without punishment, which is not fair. So let's talk about what the impact of non-competes are on our industry. And this by far is not an exhaustive list. These are just things that I've seen, things that I've heard. If you have things that you want to add to the list, by all means, send them my way. So there seems to be a fear that competition is bad and that it should be avoided and actively fought against. And I'm here to say to the studios, to instructors, competitors and competition do not equal your enemy. Again, competitors do not equal your enemy. Competition, like conflict, can be healthy and can have a positive influence on things. This is where innovation, enhancements, solutions, new things are born, improvements are born. Okay? So it's not bad. Let's stop treating it like all of it is bad, because it's not. But what is bad, the things that have happened from these non-competes that's how you lose good instructors. It's how you fail to secure experienced and qualified instructors. It's why instructors can't afford continuing education. It's how the person next to you that was your classmate yesterday becomes your instructor tomorrow. It's how students become instructors overnight before they're really ready to be instructors and cutting their own journey short. It's how some studios actually become stagnant and lose their status in the community. It's how teachers stop teaching forever. And sometimes, y'all, those are some really good teachers that we've lost out on. It's how people get hurt physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially. I've seen so much fallout. It can get messy. It can get hard. It can get very, very disheartening and depressing. It's how friendships and relationships get broken. It leads to lost opportunities. It's how gossip perpetuates. It's the idea of work this many hours to work off this dollar amount before I start to pay you can happen. It's how small businesses struggle to hire talented workers. It leads to instructor and staff burnout. It cuts career longevity short. It prevents other studios from hiring talent that they might want, need, and can benefit from. It's how students can lose a connection. It's something that was really important to their participation in their development because they had a connection to an instructor who's no longer there, and they lose their tie to the studio, or they lose their desire to continue because you took away a very important resource and support to them. It can stunt an instructor's growth. It can limit student and staff exposure to things like different body types, different teaching styles, different teaching methods, different tricks, different learning styles, different strengths, different weaknesses, etc. And the list, I could go on and on and on, but I think you guys get the point. So, what's next? Change, of course, because change is upon us. So on April 23rd, which is also my birthday, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, voted to ban non-compete agreements between employers and workers. Can I get a hallelujah? Yes. They ruled that non-competes are an unfair method of competition and can negatively affect labor and product markets. Simply, it exploits workers and prevents them from working in their field of expertise, ability, and passion. It is a control mechanism, forcing them to stay put or leave that field of work altogether or move far away in order to do the work that they want to do, or even take a lower position in title and in pay, just so that they can work. The FTC's final rule requires employers to stop enforcing most existing non-competes, and most employers will not be able to enforce or obtain new ones by late summer 2024. Y'all, that's like now. Except in a few limited circumstances, which between me and you, let's just say 99.9%, Nah, fuck it. 100% of studios are not going to qualify for. They don't qualify for. This rule is slated to take effect 120 days after it's published in the Federal Registrar, which could be as early as late August 2024, but September 4th is what I'm calling again Instructor Freedom Day. That being said, though, there are two cases that are currently in the U.S. District Court that they are trying to basically overturn this rule. In one of those cases, there was a stay in that case. However, it only applies to that specific case. So there are some things that are still up in the air, but I fully expect this ban to go through, and very much looking forward to it. So what happens when that happens? Yeah. So it's guesstimated that this rule will generate over 8,500 new businesses each year. It's going to raise worker wages, lower healthcare costs, and boost innovation. What's wrong with that? Those are all good things, right? In the pole and aerial community, that means our instructors are going to have the ability to diversify their earning potential, to increase their visibility, to secure more gigs, more teaching opportunities, more workshops. They're going to have the ability to be free to make their own employment decisions rather than being controlled and held hostage by a studio that in most cases no longer needs, wants, or supports them. And we're just talking about the people that are trying to get away from studios that they no longer have relationships with and those non-competes. There's definitely benefits for people that still work at a studio and are contracted through a non-compete to not go elsewhere. But I won't say I'm assuming, but hopefully like those people are still happy with their situation, but specifically for the people who have moved on or are ready to move on, this is going to give them the freedom and the autonomy to do so. And that is a huge deal. All right, so for my nerds who love stats, because stats are great, right? Here's some interesting data for you. So it is estimated that 1 in 5 Americans, or approximately 30 million workers, are subject to a non-compete. There's a survey done in 2014, and it was found that 53% of workers covered by non-competes are hourly workers, and also suggests that a large share of workers subject to non-competes are relatively low-earning workers. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know any millionaire pole and aerial instructors. I just don't. Literally every pole and aerial instructor are hourly and make around $25 a class, okay? So this survey also finds that non-competes are often used together with other restrictive employment agreements, including non-disclosure agreements, so NDAs, non-recruitment agreements, non-solicitation agreements. So a variety of things to keep you silent and keep you still. So again, I said all of that to say that this is something that is impacting someone you know, and maybe even you yourself. And that's why it matters. IPIA, which is the International Pole Association, they did a pole industry financial survey earlier this year. And so just a few like interesting stats from that. One of those was that hired teachers were split almost equally between part-time employees at 42% and contractors at 52%. And full-time instructor employees seems rare. So we are talking about people who are teaching part-time. It's supplemental income for a lot of them. For some of them, it could be their main income. Like everyone's situation is different. But we're talking about part-time work. And you want to prevent them from getting more work to put themselves in a better economical position. That's not right. It's just not. Another rate from that survey is that the most common hourly rate for teachers at studios was between $21 to $25. So again, that $25 mark. Now, I have heard of instructors getting paid, certain instructors, up to $100 a class or an hour, and I've heard as low as $5, which is insanity to me. But we're in an unregulated industry, and people are just do what they want to do a lot of times. And so I really appreciate the work that the IPIA is doing, the work that the American Circus Alliance, American Circus Educators, all of these organizations that are working to collect data and find solutions and provide resources so people can be more educated. We can balance things out. Like, thank you to those people doing that, because those things matter, and it's those things that are going to help bring change about in our industry. So, now what? Well, mark your calendars, September 4th, 2024. That is the day that the rule is supposed to become effective. I will probably go live that day. There will be some conversation about it because it's important. Instructors, start a conversation with your studio owners, your fellow instructors now. Decide also, like, is this going to be an appropriate time for you to renegotiate your employment contract, your pay? Be honest about what your needs are, about your boundaries, but also integrity and mutual respect, and then go out and be great, y'all. For studios, the FTC has made it easy for you to comply with a model language document that you can download. It is free, y'all, and I'm going to give you that link to that document as well. And basically, that document is going to say, a new rule enforced by the Federal Trade Commission makes it unlawful for us to enforce a non-compete clause as of date inserted by the employer, but no later than the effective date of the final rule, hence September 4th, 2024, employer will not enforce any non-compete clause against you. That means as of the date, you may seek or accept a job with any company or any person, even if they compete with your employer. You may also run your own business, even if it competes with the employer. You may compete with the employer following your employment with said employer. You're free. You are free to earn, to learn, to teach, to make a positive impact on the community. There's so much more to talk about with this, y'all. Like, this is not the end of this conversation or any conversation. It just opens up the door to more possibilities. I do want to have the conversation because I do think at some point it's important to talk about, from a studio's perspective, what they need and how they are working to keep their doors open. But it's a very interdependent relationship where studios need instructors and instructors need studios. But we have to treat each other like mutual collaborators and not as property. Studios, instructors are not your property. You do not own them. You do not own their image. You do not own their likeness. They are lending that to you because they are working with you to benefit the industry and the students. And we cannot control the instructors as a mechanism to control the students. These are all adults we're talking about who, it's their time, it's their disposable income. They should be able to do whatever they want to do with that. So I am personally happy about this rule. I'm happy about the trickle-down effects that it's going to have. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a super easy transition for everybody, but I welcome more conversation about it from a studio standpoint and from an instructor standpoint, and also from a student standpoint. I think that allowing instructors to be able to teach at different studios is going to be so good for students who have not had the opportunity to maybe train with some of these instructors because of proximity, who haven't been around instructors that share their same struggles or their same abilities or their same body types. So there's so much positive that can happen from this that I'm really, really looking forward to it. Hold on. And I think it's going to be a great, open up the door to some great things for our industry. With anything, any sort of change, there's always going to be kind of like a cooling off period and a learning curve and some rough terrain. But I think overall, the freedom that this is going to bring for instructors is going to create a happier industry. And happier instructors can lead to happier students and ultimately happier studios. So, feel free to drop your comments below. Let's keep this conversation going. I'm also including the links if you guys want to do your own research and start to read things. We're going to continue this conversation. I'm going to come back and share some things that I think instructors should be thinking about, some things that studios might want to think about, and just how we can make this into a win-win. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. This is opening the door to that healthy discovery of innovation and new solutions. And so I just feel like it's something that should be embraced as such. And so I look forward to seeing how our industry grows and benefits from this much needed, very long overdue change in business practices. Take care, y'all.